Hey guys, it's Allie. I hope you're all in the middle of a wonderful book right now. I'm sorry I've been gone so long. I started college a few months ago, so I was trying to focus on that. But I'm back now, and today... Dog. What are you doing? Anyways... Today I'm going to be sharing with you my most disappointing books of 2020. So there were plenty of books I read this year that I didn't particularly like, but I tried to keep this list as short as possible and only name the books that truly disappointed me, where I had high expectations and they just didn't latch up to those, or it was just so bad that I was couldn't necessarily get through it or had a hard time getting through it. So to start that list, we have Anna K by Jenny Lee. I read this book back in August. Actually, going through all these books, I read a lot of these in August, so apparently August just wasn't a good month. But it's basically a retelling of Anna Karenina in a YA teen kind of setting, and it was kind of disappointing to me, more than just kind of disappointing to me, because it never seemed to go past the trope of just rich kids in New York. It was always just focused on the parties they were going to and their relationships, and it just never seemed to go past what the cliches of those were. So I was really disappointed in that. I had high expectations and I thought it was going to be really interesting, but it just was very cliched to me. The pace was also really, really fast, especially at the end, which meant that I had a lot of unanswered questions, and I know there's going to be a second book, but I'm honestly not sure I'm going to read it. I mean, if enough people tell me to, maybe I will, but we'll see. And I guess part of the reason maybe I had some questions is I haven't read Anna Karenina and I don't know the detailed story of it, so maybe if I knew that it would help. But even so, I feel like even when something's a retelling, you should be able to read that book and have all of your questions answered, even if you don't know the original, and I just didn't feel that. So overall, I gave this a 2.75 out of 5. Next book was Imagine Me by Tahara Mafi, which is the 6th and final book in the Shatter Me series. And I read this sometime in the spring. I don't know exactly when though. I just didn't get the same feeling. I liked the rest of the series a decent amount, a solid 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars for me. But this last book just didn't seem to fit with what the rest of the story had been. It just didn't. I didn't see any connections. It seemed like there was a lot of just random plots that were drawn out of nowhere that had no backstory or anything. So I was just kind of disappointed in it again. It just didn't match what I saw as the rest of the series being in terms of quality. And again, I had a lot of unanswered questions. So I don't have a star rating for this one because I didn't rate it back when I read it, and I try not to rate stuff a long time after it's been read, just because I think that it introduces bias and it's not always an accurate rating. But it was definitely a less than 2.5 stars, or around a 2.5-ish. Third on this list is First Life by Jenna Showalter, which I read I think in August. It was July, August, September, one of those three, around that time. This was actually a reread for me. I had read this whole series back in, I think, 2016, around then. And I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it enough to read all of them. I tried to reread this year, and I just didn't like it. I only read through the first one. I didn't even try to get to the second and third one because I was just disappointed. Keep using that word. It's the title of this video. But I just didn't like it. I was let down because I had remembered liking it. Not loving it, but liking it. And so to reread it and just not, it was not what I was expecting in any ways. And like I said, I didn't then reread the rest of the series. Fourth on this list is After by Anna Todd, which I read, I think after, I had seen the first movie in August. It was right around the time I saw the first movie. I might have read it right before, I'm not sure. But again, very, very cliche. It was oh, bad boy, good girl, she tries to change him, doesn't work, sort of trope that you see everywhere. And I was just bored. it just repeated the same exact plot over and over and over again, where they break up and then they get back together, and they break up and get back together. And I just got tired of it, like, honestly, halfway through the first book. But I continued, and I got until, I think, like 2/3 of the way through the second book before I finally just gave up and was like, I could not do this. It just too repetitive for me. And I very, very rarely say this, but the movie was way better, and going even further, I recommend watching the movie without even reading the book at any point. I just don't think the book is worth it. Whereas I thought the movie was, like, also kind of cliche, but fun and not the same repetition over and over and over 5 times at once. So this one I gave a 1.5 out of 5 to, which is, I think, the lowest rating I gave a book this year. So again, disappointing. And then the last book on this list I'm going to get a lot of hate for. And let me preface this by saying I didn't dislike this book. I thought it was okay. But I had really, really high expectations going in of it being, like, absolutely superb, and it was just kind of, to me, mediocre. So the last book on this list is The Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Yeah, I know, you want to kill me, I get it. So I read this in September, and like I said, I just had really high expectations, and my expectations just weren't met. It's such a hyped book that I knew it was going to be hard to reach those expectations, but it just really fell kind of average for me. And it happens a lot when you have a book that's super popular, super hyped, everybody always says it's the best, that when you actually read it, it's just, you can never meet those expectations, but this one just fell for enough that I was disappointed by it. I like Greek mythology a lot. It's super interesting to me. I love like any books that interweave Greek mythology, so I really like that aspect of it. But the characters seemed a little bit one-dimensional, and I know it's a pretty long series, so like that can definitely change as I read more books, and I am planning on reading the rest of the series. It's not like top of my list to do, but I definitely want to read the rest of the series at some point, because I've heard that like the second half is better than the first half, and I know it's also like at least the first half is more of like a middle grade, so that might be part of the reason why I'm not liking it as much, because this is the first time I read it, so I might have just kind of read it a little bit too late to get like the full impact of it. The plot was also just kind of predictable at a lot of points. Again, might be a factor of it being more of like a middle grade, at least this first book. So I don't know, I will read the rest of the series at some point in 2021, I think. So I will update you guys once I do that and give you a little bit more of my thoughts on how I thought it changed over time, whether I thought it got better as the series went on and everything. But as of right now, definitely in some ways the most disappointing, just because of those expectations. Not the worst book I read by any means, but in some ways one of the most disappointing ones. So I'm hoping that it gets better in the next books. Fingers crossed, but we'll see. So overall, I give this a 3 out of 5. So like I said, I didn't dislike it. I just didn't like it as much as I was expecting to. And so those were my top 5 most disappointing books of 2020. Like I said, I had other books that I just didn't particularly like or didn't really mesh with, but none that really kind of surprised me that I disliked them as much as these ones. So if you want to hear more end of year wrap-ups, I think I've got a best releases of 2020 and best books I read in 2020 coming up soon, probably from like now until the middle of January or so. And then of course next month I've got a bunch of stuff coming out about what's coming out in 2021 and what I'm excited to read and my plans for reading for the year. So if you want to see any of that, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you can stay around for them. Now go read a good book.